Seeing how I like to reminisce on some music as I'm doing these chapters, and this chapter has to do with me moving to Arizona. I started thinking about people in Arizona and Jorge, and he was my first boss, you could say. He was the first guy that put me on deck, so to say. It's a crazy story on that. But we're going to get into this chapter 6. We could only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. If you threaten his work, he will destroy you. Get it together, freak show. Yep. Jorge, George. He was quite a cat, man. And we used to run all over Tucson. He had all his people. He looked out for me until I went to work for Frank.
Pharmacy today on the future of medical marijuana in Iowa. The Iowa Board of Pharmacy took the first step today toward legalizing marijuana for medical purposes. The board voted unanimously to recommend that lawmakers change the way marijuana is classified in Iowa. Channel 13's Elizabeth Kling has more on the decision. The story is new tonight at 5.
Motion carries.
The unanimous approval Wednesday brought a round of applause from advocates of medical marijuana.
I have multiple sclerosis, and you may look at me and think, well, this guy doesn't really look that sick or whatever. But, I'm able to maintain my health because I use marijuana.
Until today, marijuana has been classified as a Schedule I drug in Iowa, considered to have no medical value. But after months of research and public hearings, pharmacy officials agreed it's time for a change.
In order to be able to
thank you, St. Michael and Deacon.
Possibility of using medical marijuana in Iowa. That's what we wanted to do, was get it out of that C1 class.
The board is recommending the legislature classify.
And hear about some stolen weed, first weed. So let's get down to it. And like I said earlier, some of the people that I changed their names in this story, they're no longer with us. And people are wondering, why is he doing this and that? Because it's my story, and I want to make it something, for me, because I don't expect to be alive actually 2 months longer. Fuck, my brother Pete fucking died last year. My fucking son died fucking 5 years ago plus. My brother Paul, man, thinking of you, man. Stay strong. He just had surgery. He had like a hernia in his esophagus or something. They cut him up. Man, he's like 54, 55. I'll be 53 this month. So I want to get this done while I'm alive. And for whoever, when I'm gone, it'll be there for him. And I want to sell it. And I want to put it on. I want to make it into a movie. So I want some help. Some real shit. So let's get down to it. $1 Million Man, curb dog hanging out. burnt crosses, tales from the south side. Chapter 6. Before going to Tucson, I sold my car to Frankie. It was a 69 Chevelle with a 396 bored 30 over, which made it a 402. The bitch wasn't cherry, but the motor made the car. The exhaust had some holes at the bottom from the headers bottoming out too much. It needed work. Because Frankie was my oldest partner at 18, I let him have it for $300 and a half ounce of weed. I would be leaving in 3 days. My first day in Tucson was 115 degrees in the freaking shade. Riding around with my brother in a car with no air conditioner, I was ready to pass out. Back in Iowa, I had heard how cheap the weed was in Arizona and how available cocaine was. With the knowledge, I was on a quest. With that knowledge, I was on a quest, and I knew right then and there I could further my career as a weed dealer with the right people. It was what I knew how to do best. Before my 2 weeks were up, I had already landed a job at Safeway bagging groceries at $3.35 an hour. My brother's girlfriend worked there. And in my mind was destiny. Starting out in a place that you know nobody will make you homesick. If you weren't successful, the gap between Iowa and Arizona would get closer than 1,300 miles between the two. I went back to get my belongings and say my goodbyes. With visions of mountains, palm trees, and green buds in my pocket, I flew back to Iowa. I had 1 week in Iowa. I had 1 week to leave Iowa behind and be on my own. Being gone those 2 weeks, I was glad I wasn't around. Things really got twisted by the time I got back. The first sign I got was all of a sudden wealth my 3 closest friends had. Joel was leaving for Georgia in 2 days. Frankie and Sean had their jobs. And Joel broke out a roll of $100 bills. I knew something was up. The 3 of them knew I was too good of a friend and could trust me. They told me what went down. It was their first taste of big money. In order to roll the dice, one must be ready to pay the price. The story unfolds from a year ago. This is 1985. And a year prior to that, in 84, Todd Tomas, who's no longer with us, he was a known weed dealer and drug dealer or whatnot on the south side for years. People know him. He, one of his partners, or it wasn't necessarily, he was friends, and one of the guys that he did business with was Jamie Moore. And Jamie Moore got 40 pounds ripped off him from his apartment. He had, no, here it goes. Todd got the 40 pounds fronted to him from Jamie and had it ripped off out of his apartment. He had gotten the front from Jamie and was out big time. Back then it was approximately $500 a pound. So we can call that a 20K hit. The weed or any suspects never turned up. That was until now, summer of 1985, June. That was my first lesson that stolen weed is bad luck. It carries a curse. one that doesn't cause you to die the minute your hands get dirty in it. It is a curse on the rest of your life. You won't feel the paradox of time just yet. It is gradual and real. When you profit off what is not yours, life will take a different course unless you find a way to give it back somehow, some way, someday. It was Chris DeMoss, who also passed away in the early 90s down in Phoenix. It was Todd's little brother who asked Joel to give him a ride to go get some weed. The trip wasn't across town. It was a mobile home down at Lake Rathbun, a 2-hour drive. Joel knew they weren't going for a bag. Chris had told him of his brother's stash. It was actually Jamie's stolen weed. As Joel tells it, we grabbed 1 pound apiece, but there was a whole bundle stuffed in a laundry basket. Frankie, Sean, and I went back without Chris, came out with 2-3 pounds each. Must have been 20 left. Better than Jerry's kids, I said jokingly. For Joel, the score was enough. He was moving. Frankie and Sean had other ideas. Hey, what's shaking, buddy? Let's see where the hell I was. Got a phone call. There it was. After better than Jerry's kids, I said jokingly. For Joel, the score was enough. He was moving. Frankie and Sean had other ideas. Greed is such a terrible thing. So hard to control with that kind of temptation. With Joel in Georgia, I was already in Arizona by late June. Everything in Iowa remained tight-lipped about the score. Frankie was on his way, and Sean was hanging out a lot. Or I should say, Frankie went on his way, and Sean was hanging out a lot with Mike Wood, Freddie, and Joe Gacco. We all know who that motherfucker is. Joey Gacco worked with Freddie at King Caesars, and I knew him since kindergarten. And along with Mike Wood, I considered him my friends and dullest outsiders. As Sean squandered most of his score buying coke from Joey, and Mike heard more about the bundle left in the mobile home. Told me Joey, or a few years later, I said, let's go down and grab it. Oh yeah, okay. Told to me from Joey a few years later from that deal. He said to me, let's go down and grab it all. So Mike, Sean, and Joe went down and grabbed it all. Joey would recount the score sometime to me, clutching his arms together with this look of greed. I grabbed it all! In high school, some of us never had sold more than a pound. Usually we went in on one. They had 20 pounds in order to steal. And to sell it quick, it would have to be sold to someone not on the south side. And who do they know with 10K? Nobody. Not that they weren't established, not that there weren't any established rollers in Des Moines. All of the big rollers on the south side knew Jamie. He would wondered where these guys got such a good price. The three had agreed by now to drop the price per pound to $400 a pound. So, like it was going to be an $8,000 three-way split, they decided. After Frankie got word that they went back, he felt a cut was due. In a way, he staked a claim on the score like a prospector who first found the gold. Frankie could scrap, and Joey Woods and Sean decided they would give him a cut once the weed was sold. Well, through an associate of, I wrote Jeff Finley, who knew somebody. I don't know who was that. Who was that? Well, with the assistance of, he knew someone that would pay up to $350 a pound. I think it was Brinley. I don't know. He knew someone would pay $350 a pound and take it all. Oh no. Yeah, Jeff had a reputation as stiffing a coke dealer here and there. Overall, he was a straight player in this deal. The guy buying it was a repo man. He lived on the north side, so the smoke would never get back to the south side. Jeff wanted $500 a middleman for setting it up. Joey, Mike, and Sean even got Frankie to go along. After Jack's 500 and 500 for Frankie, there was still 2,000 to do whatever the fuck they wanted to do with it each. It wasn't their money, and they didn't see it that way. Starting out in a strange town after 18 years in a city was quite an adjustment. The whole month of July 1985 was homesick. Couldn't call Frankie or Sean or hang out at Greenwood. Began meeting lots of people in the first month from work and around my brother's apartment. I slept on his couch. Quite a humbling experience. It wasn't my apartment, but Paul was gone a lot working in graveyard shifts stocking at Safeway or with his girlfriend. For me, I hadn't had a steady relationship since ninth grade. Any girl didn't like smoking weed, and I never wanted to bow down like that. There are other things about me that has caused me to make sure a woman expects from me. In year 2000, 15 years after turning 18, 19 years after losing my virginity, let's just say, oh, I ain't gonna even read that. I got my confidence back after a few hookers. It was on the first months in Tucson. My right hand got a lot of work. I had the idea that I wanted to achieve some monetary success, then a woman would be with me. I was 18 and I had my whole life in front of me. I would be going back to Iowa mid-August. It was my parents' 25th anniversary. Figured I'd better call back some of my old gang and let them know I'm on my way. First call was to Frankie. After I told him I was glad my hands were clean from stealing Jamie's stolen weed, word goes around fast on the south side. Stealing stolen weed and then selling stolen weed is a double curse. A mid-level dealer named Sherman, who everybody knew, rest in peace, he passed away not a few years back, I guess. Everybody knew Sherm Dog. Uh, he was an older brother. You know, he was an older cat than us. I mean, we were like in early 20. We weren't even 20. There was at 18, 19. Sherman was in his 40s then. And who was, you know, he was among the white folk, and he got along with anybody. He always he always had weed for sale. You could always go Guy Sherman's house and get a bag. Prices were always high, deals a little skimpy. He was moving a lot of cocaine to pay up his habit, and Sean, Dewey, Mike, and spent most of their 2000 that July over at Sherman's. Joey and Mike had been coke peddlers had peddled some blow for some time, with their windfall fall now to you know, be their seed to you know, support their coke demon. And one for long before a red flag was raised. Before Joey, Mike, and Sean went back for the mother load, Sean and Joel had liquidated some of the original score to Sherman. The price of $400 a pound was too tempted for Sherm Dog to pass up. His other supplier was charging $5.50 a pound, and he knew he could always go back to him when this vein ran out. Besides the small quantities, when Sherman broke each pound down, people buying quarter bags didn't ask where he got it. It would be out of line or nobody's fucking business for the guy who supplied Sherm Dog. Aldo Allen, his perspective, had a different perspective though. When he told Aldo of the better numbers Sherman had gotten, and then saw the pot, he had to raise an eyebrow knowing the price. But and these guys that sold Sherman the smoke didn't really deal in large quantities. On top of that, Aldo's supply was none other than Jamie Moore. So if it were not for Aldo taking an ounce bag from Sherman, things might have been not brought to Jamie's attention. As a dealer, seeing your weed on the street is a rush, unlike a big sale. When your stolen weed hits the street, chances are that somebody will get bent over it. After a call placed to Sherman from Jamie, names were brought up. Word was getting around that it was Sean, mainly because he had been showing a little too much money around Sherman's buying coke. Sean was barely 5'2", 120 pounds, and with a face like a 10-year-old. Not much a challenge for a guy 6'2", 250 pounds plus. It got to the point to where Sherman had to have a face-to-face, had to face Jamie over the phone. Sherman had his back over this and told Jamie flat out, I went down with Chris one time and got a pound and blew the money. The conversation went silent. Who the fuck took the rest? The fucking DeMoss left the state, fucking pussy. I'll kill that motherfucker if I ever see him, if I'm around, Jamie told him. Sean knew the bulk of the money had been split 6 times. It was up to him to take the heat off everyone. So after threatening calls to his house, to his mom's house had stopped, Jamie would find out from Aldo Sean's mom worked as a secretary at the police department. Any attempt to hurt Sean would bring heat down on Jamie. Until he saw the bag and heard the story, he just thought someone ripped DeMoss off, is all he thought. By the fall of 1985, my main goal was always to have a weed source. From hanging out with my brother, I made some good contacts. Regular bag sellers who always had it. I had no car and rode my brother's scooter around when he didn't use it. Some nights I would go to the Circle K and look for some girls to smoke weed with and hit on. I met this girl one time there. I took her to a Motley Crue concert, nothing more than a wet finger. She had to be home early. She wasn't even 18 yet. I was 18. She was 16. Her mom thought we were going to a movie. Spent a lot of time thinking how I would make it quick so I could have a steady woman. I always knew that when my days of wealth would happen, I just needed to keep making contacts and my time would come. All right. So, on to chapter 7. So, that's the story of that's the story of the 40 pounds or whatnot that Todd Moss said he's got stolen, but it was Jamie Ellis's weed that he fronted Todd DeMoss. Todd DeMoss stole it, took it down to Lake Rathman, and a couple times Joel went down, Sean and Joel and Catfish went down, but then the mother load with Joey, Sean, and Woodard, they went down and grabbed the 20 pounds. Fucking cursed weed. You wonder why I'm fucking telling this fucking story? Because one day, if I don't tell the story like this, it's not gonna get told. So who's gonna bring it out in my journals if it's not out here like this? It's my story and it's fucking burnt crosses. Tales from the South Side, and working on that documentary Field of Greens.